inspiration was like a slow burn. It was like gathering lots of information first. I did a fair amount of research on a whale conference that started over 20 years ago called The Legend of the Golden Dolphin, which was about the golden dolphin bringing to Earth a new consciousness, and that we would expand in that consciousness. And in that research, I think what was happening slowly is my consciousness was expanding into embrace cetaceans as a being of great consciousness. And that to me was a surprise. I hadn't had a lot of interaction with whales or dolphins prior to that. What was also inspiring is that we started a listening circle. So there was 4 of us, Doug and Mela, the sponsors, and Marilee and myself, and we sat once a week for probably, 50 sessions, maybe over a year and a half, just in conversation. And in the listening of those conversations came out a set of principles. And from those set of principles, we concocted a brief. The brief talked about, it needs to be non-judgmental, it needs to be a direct, clear statement from whale consciousness. It needs to have a message of interconnectedness with Gaia and the planetary entity of Gaia. We wanted it to be positive, but we also didn't want it to be a new age, hopeful, ungrounded message that avoided the truth of what was occurring. And as our days go on, we can see our world's getting into a more critical place all the time. So we wanted to be able to inspire people to go deeper. And also, there's a primary question in the film that says, and this is from whales, what on earth are we to do? So it's a really fundamental question, I think, for everybody at some level here, is we are part of watching a critical time in humanity's evolutionary journey. Do we know how to go about this? Is there a precedence? Is there any model of understanding that says, if you do this, you'll be okay? Because I think a lot of people are probably not feeling okay at some fundamental level. So, and that was also overlapped with how do we capture a tone that is not corny, that is not airy-fairy, that is not black and dark and heavy. And that's where the idea of the poetry came in. So in using poetry, we could say things, I guess, more rhythmically, more dynamically than if we just had a narrator saying, whales did this, the Earth's like this, and good luck, guys. That didn't hold very much power to it. And so we gave a brief to Adrian to write the middle section, and I think his sense of rhythm and poetry and light and dark set a tone that we then worked with for the rest of the film. I think he captured the duality of humanity extremely well, and also the interface between what happens when a divine being or a greater being or a cosmic being, which is what whales are in cosmology or in mythology, interact directly with humanity. What happens in that? And how do you talk about that? How do you talk about, gee, I met this cosmic being as I was walking along the beach today? Kind of a little bit, a tad difficult to encompass that and give it layers of meaning. So the idea and the poetry that we got from Adrian, I think, opened us into a different way of telling this story. It also presented some major challenges. Poetry, by its very nature, has a grace and a pacing around it, and visual imagery has a pace and a meter to it, and to match those together was, in the first round it was pretty terrible. It was literal and it was linear, and every line that the whale said we were trying to follow, and it was junky. It was terrible. So after a while we could step back and bring that more the essence of the beauty that's inherent in the exchange with nature, or the beauty that's inherent in the exchange with another being of consciousness. And I think that set us into our own personal journey of interrelatedness with a species, with a planetary crisis. And so I think we were held, particularly in the editing room, for hours, which downloading all of that visual imagery took a long time to find. But I think the essence of deep gratitude and deep appreciation comes through the story. And as we worked, I'd worked on other films and other projects. Generally speaking, there's a fairly high level of tension that goes with filmmaking. It's not, you've got to be a tad insane to make a film, I think, anyway. So, but what we experienced was this delightful, ongoing peacefulness. And, it was stretched out. The production took quite a long time just through logistical reasons. But there was a harmony in the process that was beyond our capacity to create harmony. And I think we want that message in the story as well. There's something here, there's a synchronicity that happens that's greater than any individual when you connect to a whale, or you connect to nature, or you connect to the cosmos in any, intrinsic way of gratitude. Then more than your own singular capacity opens up, and our world needs that right now. We don't have the political will or the consciousness that says, how do we solve all of these problems that are mounting exponentially every day? And it's like, well, if we don't work with something greater than us, then it's going to be a struggle. And so this journey for me, I didn't know whales before I walked on the beach, so I was personally surprised at how the engagement, the activation that comes from a journey with cetaceans takes you on a path that is totally surprising, unpredictable, synchronistically congruent. It makes sense, and you could never plan it. And somehow I think as a humanity and as individuals, we need that. We need a pathway that is greater than our capacity. And for me, there's a seed of hope in that. There's a seed of possibility. And it was a delight to be in their presence for as long as as long as we have been. And it continues. It's not that we're making the film anymore, but that sense of possibility, of potential in the face of a bleak future has been personally very gratifying, and I think essential. So out of that came a hopefulness that I personally didn't have before I started this journey. I would say prior to this, a healthy streak of cynicism would have been my guiding light. Okay, and I say healthy in that I'm not naive anymore, and I'm not sort of idealistic, but still wanting to be part of a world that's positive, and yet wasn't feeling so good about that. My journey with whales has shifted that, and if there's something that we can imbibe in the film or give to somebody else in that film, then that sense of hopefulness and that sense of gratitude, I think, is a great gift. And it continues in my life as I continue to work with them. We're moving into another story now, and while it's not centred in whale consciousness, I shouldn't say that, it's not centred as a story in whale. There's a whale consciousness that threads the way through it. And it too is a many-layered story, and I think, like A Tale from the Whale, it has a poignancy about it. There's a potency in the construct of the poem and the construct of the creation story, and, if you like, in the structure that Whale imbibes as we move through life. So in that sense, I'm felt very privileged to be part of that journey, and we go back to Hervey Bay now annually to spend time with whales in the birthing place. That's a ceremony of consciousness, it's a ceremony of gratitude that, while it doesn't dictate where we go, it certainly influences the way that we see life. And I think that's a beneficial thing if you can have something that comes outside of yourself into a new path that you can't work out, because there's so many problems we can't work out. Then I'm grateful to be part of that. And if other people watching the film get some sense of hopefulness, then I'd be really well pleased.